My fellow KW stakeholders, of course, it's Aaron Kaufman, Chief Stakeholder Evangelist out of Atlanta, Georgia. And guys, I am super excited today. We have Mr. Shaun Rawls as our interviewee today. And, anybody that knows Shaun knows that he is, one of the OGs of KW, and a lot of amazing people who were leaders in our company have come off the Shaun Rawls tree. So Shaun, how you doing today, buddy?
Buddy, I'm great. Excited to be talking to you, man, face to face. We don't get together enough.
We don't, man, but you know how much you mean to me. I know a lot of people on this call probably don't know that you were the OP of my market center when I joined KW. And I don't know if you remember or not, but the last thing in the world I wanted to participate in was profit share.
I do recall that.
Yeah. And, so I wanted to talk to you, one, because, I love you and I just love everything that you do, that you've done for KW and your perspective on things. And, we know, Shaun, that we've come a long way since back in the day as a company. And up until now, we have given back almost $2 billion in profit share in the history of this company. And, what's crazy about that, Shaun, is that less than 30% of our people even participate in it. I mean, imagine the potential for KW if we could get the majority of our agents participating in profit share. So I want to talk to you today. One, you're a top profit share earner in KW. I mean, you're top 15 in KW. I'm sure you've made well over 7 figures in profit share, but you've also, we're one of the big people that brought KW to Atlanta. You have ownership in multiple market centers. So I'd love to get your perspective too, from an owner standpoint, but why don't you catch everybody up on who you are, what your history is with KW, how you ended up bringing KW to Atlanta, and, how much money you've earned in profit share, and we'll kind of go from there, right?
Sure. So in 1999, the short story is we opened the first Keller Williams in the state of Georgia, right? So yep. Keller Williams First Atlanta. And that was back when it was certainly Keller Who.
Yep.
And everybody thought we were nuts and thought I'd lost my mind and what was I doing? And it turned out to be the scariest, best decision ever. And we had about 21 brave souls that decided to hold hands and jump into the KW pool with me at the time. And
Shaun, you were a big RE/MAX agent at the time, right?
I was a big RE/MAX agent.
Yeah.
My ex-wife and I were a husband-wife team, and we sold for RE/MAX, and we were doing pretty well, and things were rocking along when I got introduced to Bob Kalinsky through Kay Evans at the time. And we just all kind of got excited about it at the same time and did it. And that one office turned into ultimately 6 market centers. We ended up branding ourselves as the Rawls Group of Keller Williams offices. And that became the #1 real estate group in the state of Georgia by 2010. That was a 10-year run.
Yep.
And what was funny is that was, as you recall, we really made our biggest move during the Great, recession, right?
Yeah.
We used to meet in the movie theaters and talk about stats and talk about our perspective, and we kind of were that company that we were sitting at 2 or 3 going in, and before it even came out of the recession, everything that we were doing had propelled us to #1, and it's pretty much a spot I don't think we've lost as a group since then. But it was a good run. I ended up running the New York tri-state region for a while, about 5 years, from 2010 to 15. 2015, I'd stepped out of all ownership and responsibilities roles anyway, not ownership, but responsibility roles of titles of anything that require me to do anything. And so it's kind of been an interesting run. Wrote a book and still get profit share and live a lot on passive income. And, we talked about that forever in terms of what the opportunities were with this company. And you talk about it as a leader, and you kind of, for the longest time, you hope you're teaching the right things, and but when you actually cut the cord and you're no longer on salary and you're no longer drawing an earned income from the company you built, it's kind of comforting to know that all the passive stuff actually does work the way it was designed to work. So when the parachute opens, it's kind of nice to know that the parachute opens and you're going to land.
Absolutely. And so what, I know you obviously have ownership interest, but on the associate side, do you happen to know roughly what your lifetime profit share earnings are up until now?
I don't. You might know it because you track all that stuff, but I don't know it. It's been a solid 6-figure income.
Yeah.
The funny thing about profit share, when I go back to it, is when we were looking at Keller Williams before we had even opened, or right about the time we were opening Sandy Springs back in '99, we got introduced to Althea Osborne, right?
Yes.
And at the time, Althea had made $121,000 in profit share that year.
Yeah.
And I can remember looking around and thinking, okay, so let's all just understand that she's the golden pony and nobody's going to make $120,000 a year, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So maybe we can get close to 6 figures, or maybe we can do something like that. But 120,000, that's the best they've got. So that's probably not, and she's been here a while, so we're not going to catch that number, but we can still enjoy a good profit share in this company.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, I think it was like 2 or 3 years later, we had made, $120,000. And I was thinking, holy cow, what is, and then Althea at the time was making probably 300 or 400. And we're like, okay, so I was completely wrong. Number one. Number two, she is a pace car and we are just going to chase her like nobody's business. So no longer are we going to say we can't get there. We just want to fill her shoes when she moves to the next level.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And look, we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? I mean, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't see not only your profit share checks, but people like Jennifer Barnes in our office. And, one of the things I loved about, your office and was a real catalyst for me to get purposeful about it, among many other things, was that you guys weren't shy about talking about profit share. I mean, it was actually celebrated at every sales meeting. And, one of the things that I loved about the team leader you had back then was that, back then we had the profit share statements, right? Those monthly statements, right? And he would get up at every sales meeting after the 21st of the month, and he would start passing them out, right? And what I loved about what he did was that he would start with the smallest, because that was oftentimes somebody's very first profit share check, right? And so that one needed to be celebrated. But by the time he got done, he was showing $5,000-$10,000 monthly checks for people like Jennifer Barnes and Marilyn McAllister and Shaun Rawls. And, that got my attention. And so, after, doing what I've done for so long, Shaun and KW, I don't see a lot of market centers celebrating profit share at a very high level. And particularly these days when the market is down and profit share is, going through a transitional phase, I'm seeing it even less. So talk a little bit about the importance of painting a vision for what profit share is and talking about it. Because look, when you brought KW to Atlanta, I mean, it probably took a couple of years before you guys even saw any kind of profit. So talk about how important, or what your thoughts were around profit share as an owner, right? I mean, did you see it as a catalyst for growth and culture, or did you see it as an expense? I mean, talk about your mindset around profit share and what your philosophies were in instructing your leadership of your market centers to talk about it and embrace it.
So it's kind of funny when you look back. And by the way, I think we were profitable like in just a few months.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah.
So, and I remember my first profit sharing check being like $1.76, I think, something like that. And I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And so there was something in our account. And I was like, what is this? I don't understand what this deposit is from Keller Williams for $1. What and because it was the first time we'd ever profit shared. And we just, we thought like you would have happened later.
Yeah.
And we thought that was profit share. And I think we went out and celebrated that to everybody. It was like, oh my God, people, we're in the profit sharing phase. And I never got a check from Remax, but and I don't want to talk about other companies, but it was just historically, like I'd never gotten a check from another company, right?
Well, you had attracted people, I'm assuming, to Remax just naturally being the great agent you were.
For sure.
Right?
For sure. I think if you enjoy where you are, you want to work with people you want to work with. You want to play with it's like you want to go out and have a beer with people you like, right?
Yeah.
You want to go to work with people you like. And we're in a business where I love real estate agents. I don't care what company you're with. We're all cut from the same cloth. We go out, we're financial daredevils. We go to work every day, not knowing if we're going to get paid. And we just have a spirit that believes in ourselves and bets on ourselves at the end of the day. And I think profit share for me was just, oh my God. Because I used to say, this real estate's like the oldest form of prostitution next to prostitution itself. Right.
Yeah.
Because I was like, look, everybody else goes out and does all the dirty work while some big fat broker sits up in the office and smokes a cigar and, collects a bunch of money off of the people doing all the dirty work. Right. And I loved, one of my favorite, cartoons or Disney movies growing up was Robin Hood, right? Where they steal from the rich and give to the poor. I loved that whole mentality. And for me, I kind of felt like Robin Hood, 20 something years ago. And I was like, hey, people, I'm going to let you know a secret. We're going to do this real estate thing. We're going to crush it. We're going to be as successful as we can be. And we're going to give about half of our profits back to the people that actually help us make that happen. And the cool thing is you get to keep on keeping on getting that kind of passive income. And we really were serious about, I used to talk about, if you're in real estate now, you've got a one-legged stool and you got to be really good at balancing, because that was the commission. That was your income came from one pillar, right?
Yep.
And we had the opportunity to add a leg and stabilize that stool, and then teach people how to take that passive income and invest it in other things to create more passive income. And I wanted people to develop a three-legged stool of income to start. And then once you got that base under you and you weren't a real estate agent who traditionally was scrambling for every dollar they earned and who's paying last year's taxes with this year's money,
Yep.
that was just something that I really wanted to get people out of and wanted people to have a more stable and comfortable financial situation.
Yep.
And I really thought profit share was just an awesome breakthrough from a real estate model historically to give everybody a seat at the table. And it's not just the money of it. I mean, people talk about our culture with Keller Williams and the Be Nice and what Mo's done with the company, all that, but and that's all important. But if you really peel back the layers of the onion, the fact that we give half of our profits back to the people that helped grow it, it changes. It's what it's the engine of the. If culture is the Ferrari, profit share is the engine in it.
Absolutely.
Because it'll only look pretty, but it won't go fast without you. So for profit share, because a lot of people say, well, I'm a brand new agent, I'm not influential. And I agree with that. I don't want somebody who just got here chasing people down just for profit share without any historical background or anything. I just want you to love where you are. And while you're going through it and building your business, if you come across people, if you're happy, tell people you're happy and you love it. You don't need to tell them they need to come. You don't need to tell them why they need to come. Just be happy where you are and be a great agent and be a great example of what we can produce as a company, because you're copying off the best agents in the market center's paper. That's the model. Like, if you're not getting profit share, you're still benefiting from a transparent, authentic model where people want you to succeed. And historically, in a real estate office, people are scarcity minded and they want themselves to succeed. And it's kind of like, I hope you do well, but you know what? I ain't got time for you. Right. And in this model, it's, how can I help you? Do you need something? What can I show you? Let me send you my touch program. Let me show you what I'm doing to my farm. Let me tell you my listing presentation. Let me show you the scripts I'm using for handling objections with the buyers. Over and over and over, we have examples of that. And all of that happens because people understand that if our office does better, I do better from a passive standpoint. And everybody benefits in that environment. And it's profit share that really makes that happen if you really understand what it does.
Yeah, and Gary says it pretty black and white, right? Our culture starts with profit share, right? And look, other companies have culture. There are good people at other companies. Not everybody at KW buys into our culture, but there is something inherently different about it. And now that we are 200,000 agents worldwide, to be a part of a company where there's actually a real incentive behind the culture, is how we've been able to keep that culture going. Because I think the biggest challenge for any company that's culture driven is, as you grow, is making sure that it keeps up, right? And I think we've had a lot of ups and downs over the years. I mean, we've gone through huge growth periods where oftentimes, we've sort of forgotten our true north. But I've never been more, I think, excited about where we are as a company, because
I
now,
agree with you. I
yeah,
agree with you. And I will tell you this. It's, I can remember somebody coming into my office. I don't know when it was, but
yeah,
somebody came to my office and they were pissed. They
yeah,
were pissed about, I think it had something to do with our technology and it sucked and what they were paying, what they didn't understand or whatever it was and what's going on. And I said, listen, let me make sure you're crystal clear on one thing. And they're like, what is it? And I was like, we don't know what the hell we're doing. And he looked at me and he said, what do you mean? I was like, we don't know what we're doing. I was like, we've never been at 75,000 agents before.
Yeah.
And we knew what we were doing at 50, but 75 is a whole new realm. We don't know. We're trying to figure it out, and we're going to figure it out. I was like, because I've been with the company long enough to know we screw it up first.
Yeah.
And we fix it second. Exactly. I was like, and if you've been to any class we've ever taught, one of the main principles we teach to you, because we live it ourselves, is failure is a part of the process. Absolutely. And listen, we are going to go and we are going to screw things up as fast as we can. And then we're probably going to overcompensate trying to fix it. And then we're probably going to fall somewhere in the middle. And then we're going to have a new dragon to fight, and we're going to fail fighting that dragon. And then we're going to swing it back over and we're going to overcompensate. And then we're going to figure out where we need to be with the dragon. And then there's going to be another one to fight. But we fail all the time. And I think people forget that. And we can't talk about failure and success leaves clues and failure leaves clues if we're not living it. And if one thing I believe and have seen over and over again is we are a company that models everything. We model success. We model failure. We model experimentation. We model profit share. But we always get to the right place because our intentions are always right. And they're always to be the best real estate company, providing the best possible value to anybody in the business that we can do. And I've watched that happen over and over and over again. But if you're going to grow, it's like if you're an agent and you've gone from $100,000 to $200,000, I guarantee your move from 100 to 2 was not pretty. You weren't scoring tens on the dance floor getting there. You were pissing people off. You were dropping things because you got busy and your systems get exposed and your talent gets exposed and you realize you're missing a man and you realize you need to upgrade your systems because they're built for $100,000 production and they're not built. It's the same thing for us as a company. Absolutely. And we do the same thing, and we hit ceilings and we've got to reinvent and we've got to do things. And I don't know if you're a fan of Amazon, but there's a book called Invent and Wander. And it's the book about, it's Jeff Bezos's book. Yeah. And the first half of that book is all of his investor letters that he wrote from the beginning of the company every year in April. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating to read those, Aaron, because his letters for like year after year after year were like, hey, listen, we're going to screw a lot of stuff up. I'm going to try a lot of things. I'm going to find out what works and what doesn't. And I'll find more things that don't. But the things that do will make us more money than all the things that we screwed up on. And if you don't like that, go invest in another company. He is so unapologetic about his ability to experiment and try new things and see what works and keep twisting the Rubik's Cube. And it's really a lesson in leadership, because it's like, I know where I'm going. I know what's going to make us a lot of money. I know failure is a part of that process. And if you don't like that, I'll see you later.
Exactly. And look, that's why, I wish Gary Keller was going to live for another 100 years, but I have no doubt that our company, he surrounded himself, Shaun, with people that are smarter than him. And even though, he won't be around for 100 years, I think that constant mindset of breaking things and failing forward. One of my favorite lines about what Gary says is, there's no catch up, right? And I always think about a bottle of ketchup with a mustache, right? I had a great T-shirt that says there is no catch up. And what people need to understand is, we've been failing for 40 years, right? like we're not even the company that people are even trying to emulate anymore, and so that constant I think sort of true north of failing forward, but always remembering who we are as a company and what we're fighting for, especially right now, Shaun. I mean, talk about the industry today. I mean, could you have imagined 20, 30 years ago being in this moment where we are literally going to either become travel agents of the 90s or lawyers, right? I mean, what does it mean to you to be aligned with a company that's not just, focusing on, teaching agents how to build careers worth having and business worth owning, but to literally be fighting for the future of our profession? I mean, we're the only company, you would agree, that is really fighting for the future of our profession. What does that mean to you, and how does that tie in to what you just said and the purpose?
I think it means a lot to everybody,
Yeah.
whether they realize it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you, I've said for a long time that, I think there's a lot of, again, because of what I said about the historical models of real estate earlier, it's, there are a lot of owners and a lot of companies, some more than others, that are really in it for themselves to get rich and to make their, 100, 200, 300, $500 million of company sale, so that they're okay.
Yeah.
And they're not really worried about the longevity of real estate, because for them, real estate is a 5 to 10 year play.
Yeah.
And the one thing I've always loved about Gary is, he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he's also one of the most consistently passionate people I've ever known. And he's always fought for the agent. And there's probably a lot of, younger, newer people that don't really know Gary or have that sense of him, but you're who he's fighting for. I mean, he's fighting for the guy getting into the business that wants to make a career out of it and be here 30 years later. He's fighting for that. And he realizes it's important. He realizes our jobs are important, and the people that are trying to snuff out what real estate agents provide in the marketplace for a buck is not worth it. And he's really the only one, in my opinion, that truly is connected to the agent base as a leader in his position, and goes to work trying to preserve that opportunity for everybody.
And look, thank God we're still a privately held company, right? I mean,
I think the talk of all the possible going public and all that's, I think that was an idea that got squashed, and it needed to, because there's nothing. The only way to do that is to compromise principles and other things for people that have nothing to do with your business. And it just, I think it was a good discussion topic. But I'm really happy to see the path of keeping Keller Williams a private company.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, who do you think cares more about the future of our profession? Wall Street shareholders or agent stakeholders, right?
Yeah, I think that's obvious.
The problem, Shaun, obviously, is that 80 to 90% of real estate agents don't necessarily, I mean, they care about the future of their profession. It's not the priority today, right? Especially in a shifting market, right?
Well, anytime you've got a business that you're not comfortable with your ability to make it consistent, you can't focus on anything but what's right in front of your face.
Yeah.
And there's a time period where everybody's got to go through that, right? But if you've been in the business for a long time and you still haven't set up the systems and structure to make your business a consistently operating business, you've really got to look at what you can and should be doing better. And you've got to hold yourself accountable. And I would say, if you don't have a coach, you need to get one. But you can't think long-term as a business owner if you have to think now.
Yeah.
If you have to think about paying your rent next month, if you have to think about making your car payment. And look, we've all paid those dues. I mean, you get in this business, it's a commission-based business. There's a period of time that you are gonna be dog paddling your way to the edge of the pool, and you've got to stay focused on that. But in the process, as you get better and better and better, you're supposed to get better and better and better.
Yeah.
You're supposed to build a business that can sustain you and outlive you ultimately, and that's the goal. But look, we're just a bunch of, I've always said real estate agents, we're the land of misfit toys. we're the ADD generation. We can focus on what we can focus on, and we're not really good at long-term thinking, which is one of the things I loved about our education, because we really keep that 3-5 career year time frame out in front of you with everything that we think about, so that you can keep being reminded of the importance of looking beyond today.
Absolutely. And, I think people need to understand that, we have spawned off a lot of our competition, right, at KW. And the reason we have is that when you teach agents how to build a huge business with no boundaries, guess what they do? They end up thinking that they can do it better on their own, and by the way, that's exactly what we would expect as a company. But talk a little bit about, because look, you weren't just at Remax, right? You were at other models before Remax as well. Is that correct?
I started with a small little local brokerage, and then moved to that. Yeah.
But Shaun, I mean, the history of real estate. That there always, it was more, used to be more of a traditional industry where it was brand centric and more of an employer-employee type relationship. And then Remax came out with more of their landlord-tenant relationship, their 95-100% model. They took over the industry, and then KW comes out with this interdependent model, right, where people have an incentive to work together and care about each other. And I would think that that's probably the number one reason we took over the industry, is that we were the most abundantly thinking, culturally driven real estate company in an industry that was never like that. So I guess the question I have for you, Shaun, is what are your thoughts about some of these, we don't have to talk about specific companies, but there's a lot of new flashy objects, right, in the industry right now.
Yeah, sure.
And talk a little bit about, I mean, particularly in a moment like this, because look, you were talking before about how we took over this industry in the last shift, right? That's when KW became number one, was during the last shift. And when I talk to people, I'm like, look, I know it's tough times these days, but I'm actually more excited than I've ever been, because last time I checked, we were born in a shift. We took over this industry in the last shift. And I kind of feel like the moment we're in right now, Shaun, is going to be another one of those moments that we look back in 5, 10, 15, 20 years and say, wow, that was the moment. That shift was when KW took the next step. So talk about some of these new flashy objects, because, look, you guys, have been, you built these market centers 15, 20, 25 years ago. They're still top, 100 market centers. How have you been able to maintain, your roster, your profitability at a time when the market is shifting and there's a lot of new flashy objects that are either aggressively recruiting your fellow stakeholders, or that are just so price driven that agents feel like, hey, that's the place I need to go? What is it about the way you guys are running your offices, and just your thoughts around that in this moment that we're in?
I don't think the answer really changes based on competition, right? Yeah. I think and what I love about competition in general is, particularly new competition, if you want to know the truth, what I love about new competition is it makes everybody go back to their war room and go, okay, it's time for us to look at the warts that we've got and be really honest about them. And let's figure out how to make sure we're playing our best game. Competitions, I don't mind having competition gain some share. Yeah. I don't want competition to gain share unnecessarily off of our lack of potential, right? Yeah, or our lack of production, or our ability not to do what we're supposed to be doing. So where are we falling short in our value proposition? Where are we failing our agents? Yeah. Where can we be better as an organization? Because look, we all know when tough times hit, that's what makes greatness. I mean, and I've seen that over and over. Easy times, everybody looks like a rock star. Every model looks like it's awesome. Everybody's having a party after work, and it's, they've got beer in the vending machine at the office, and everybody's having fun. I mean, good times are good times for everybody, and that's great. It's when things get challenging, that's when the real people show up for leadership, in my opinion. And I think we've always been good at that. And the one thing I've loved about our model consistently is we do spawn off other things. We do spawn off, but where we have lot. I mean, look, I've got a ton of great friends at EXP. I mean, there's some awesome people in that organization. There's some awesome people in Real. They're people that I think the world of and would probably take a bullet for today, no matter what T-shirt they're wearing.
Yep.
But we've also spawned off some Ben Kinney's, right? And some things that are doing some unbelievable things for our agents and still affiliated with this company.
Yep.
And while competition in 20 something years with Keller Williams, the one thing I've watched is everybody wants to take a piece of our formula, right? And everybody wants to say, hey, if you talk to them, we're like KW this way, or we're like KW this way, or we do things a lot like you're used to at KW, except this is better. And they can take a piece of it and play with it, but I haven't seen anybody come up with everything we have as a value proposition. Yeah. They lock in on something that's dollar oriented, or they lock in on something that's passive or in some sort of thing or another, or they lock in on something that's education related, but they don't have they don't have all the components that we've got. If they did, they'd just be another Keller Williams. So for me, I look at competition like ice cream flavors, right? It's like, okay, so we were Rocky Road when we came out, and we were the best thing anybody's tasted. And then you've got something coming out, and you've got this. And now there's bubble gum, and now you can have this, and now you can have, Heath Bar Crunch with whatever. And everybody can have. You can have there's enough ice cream for everybody. I don't know why they make strawberry ice cream. I've never bought strawberry ice cream in my life, but apparently there's a lot of people that like strawberry ice cream because it's never gone away, right? So I think the real estate company landscape is much the same way. I mean, look. Again, we're kind of the land of misfit toys. So if something's not working for you, something else might work for you for a while, and that's okay. But ultimately, we have been an unbelievably consistent company in what we do. And whether you're with this company or whether you've come from this company to somewhere else, I guarantee you that everything you are today is because of what you learned at our company.
Absolutely.
And you can't, and I think that at some point when a new system starts to fail you, or a new system starts failing on its own, which I think we're going to see some of that, I think you're going to see a migration back for people that left for bright and shiny reasons, to come back to something that, while we're not the bright and shiny new company on a lot of levels, we really are the most consistent value provider in the real estate model, and that's fighting for your ability to do this 20 and 30 years from now.
Exactly.
And look, it's the one thing we saw too, and I'm continue to be convinced with, is I love that our model involves a community and a real live community that you can go to whenever you need to, right? I can remember in the last shift, there was a guy that we passed each other in the hall at Sandy Springs, and I was the OP. I was not the team leader. And I stopped him and I was like, how you been, man? I was like, I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks or whatever. And what's going on with you? And we were just kind of shooting the shit. And he said, can I be honest with you? And I said, sure. And he said, I gotta tell you, he said, this has been really hard for me. And it's not been the only thing that's been hard for me, but it's been really hard. And he said, but you probably don't know this because we don't really talk a lot, and you're kind of my boss on some level, but you and I had a conversation that was about a minute long about a month or so ago. And what you don't realize is the conversation and the exchange that I had with you, I was going to end my life. I was going to end my life. And he said, and I had an exchange with you here in the office. And because of that exchange, I didn't.
Yeah.
And I get teared up when I think about it today. And I've thought about it a lot, but I'm like, oh my God. I mean, that's, yeah. I don't even know how to put the context of the weight of that out there, but you do realize that we are connected. And when we can look each other in the eye and we can give somebody a hug, or we can say, dude, crush it. Keep swinging, keep swinging, keep swinging. You are going to hit a home run. You're going to get on base. You are going to get on base. Just keep swinging. You're doing all the right things. Your time just hadn't come, and momentum's an awesome thing. And when we can be around our people, and we can go and have chili cook-offs, and we can have team meetings and laugh and do, I mean, all the things that just happen inside the walls of a great market center. You can't not have that. I mean,
Right.
I'm just going to say our physicalness, the physicality of our model, and the ability to have everything exemplified in a location where you can go and touch and feel and smell and laugh and cry and learn and grow. I know we can do that like we're doing this thing this morning.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying it's different. It's different. When I touch when the palm of my hand touches the palm of your hand and we give each other a high five, this does not substitute that.
No doubt, Shaun. And, even though I teach a 3-hour profit share class, I talk 10 minutes about the money, and the two words that I find myself really hammering these days are purpose and community, right? And I remember I saw a great interview with a guy named Simon Sinek, who I'm sure you know, Shaun. And somebody had asked Simon Sinek, I mean, this was like 7-8 years ago. They said, what are people going to be craving from their employer and their workplace in the digital age, right? Now, this was like 7-8 years ago. And I think it's fair to say, Shaun, we're not just in the digital age anymore. I mean, we are literally smack dab in this moment, right in the middle of the longest digital experience of our lifetime. But, when he said that 7-8 years ago, it really stuck with me, because when I think about purpose and community, what other real estate company can even hold a candle to our inherent purpose and community, right? I mean, one, we're the only company fighting for the future of your profession and building technology to protect you and help you out Zillow. But the other side of it is there's a real incentive here for people to work together and care about each other in an industry that's always been kind of independent. And especially after the pandemic, Shaun, right? I mean, when we were isolated physically, and, I always say to people, look, I think it's fair to say our country is more divided than it's ever been, to be a part of a global real estate company of 200,000 stakeholders that are bound together by purpose and community, that have a real incentive to work together and care about each other and are fighting for the future of our profession. I mean, to me, that doesn't fit on a spreadsheet. And, God forbid something bad happens to us or a natural disaster hits our town, which is a rare thing in Atlanta. But why don't we talk to some of our Maui agents in a couple of months and see what their experience was like being a part of Keller Williams after that horrible fire, or our associates in Fort Myers who, had to clean up their lives after Hurricane Ian rolled through Florida. I mean, there's so many stories in this company of purpose and community. And I think what scares me, doesn't scare me, but what concerns me, Shaun, is we're now, and I got to quote, one of my favorite people at KW, Mahogany Rhodes, who I believe you probably know, right? Who's now
very well.
Love Mahogany Rhodes, right?
Who doesn't? If you don't love mahogany, something's wrong with you.
But she said it best. We're on the third generation of Keller Williams, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people in our company today, agents and leaders, that don't know who we are and where we've come from, that don't know what it's like to be this emerging company that other companies are, intentionally trying to get in front of. I mean, so that's why I do what I do, Shaun, is that, Gary's not going to be around forever. Anybody that's purposeful about profit share knows that this is not about our next check. All right. If we keep doing this right, Shaun, this is going to ripple through generations of our families. I mean, you've made enough money already to have it be generational wealth building. But in 50 years, when you and I are gone from this planet, Steele and Canyon, I got those two names right, I believe.
Steele and Noble. Steele Canyon is his middle name.
Okay, sorry, Steele and Noble.
Noble and Steele.
Their kids will be celebrating their grandpappy or their great grandpappy.
Let's hope so.
Of the month, if we keep fighting to protect this, right?
Sure.
And so we got to be careful that we don't forget to keep telling our story, right? Which starts, by the way, with profit share, right? And so I would tell you that the best thing that's ever happened to KW are these flashy new objects, because it has forced this company to look in the mirror and figure out how can we be better. And I look back to, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when we were this rocket ship, during the growth initiative. And, it was all about being number one in every category. And Simon Sinek, who also wrote a book called The Infinite Game, he talks about, the companies that are playing the infinite game always remember their true north. And I think for that period of time, we got so obsessed with the numbers and being number one in every category that we kind of lost our true north. And I think after we experienced some of these new flashy objects and this shift, I can just tell you personally, in my interactions with KWRI's leadership team, it's like night and day. I mean, I could not be more crazy about Mark King and Jason Abrams and what they are doing for our company and what they believe around, what their feelings are around profit share. Because 8-10 years ago, nobody wanted to hear about anything that we could do better, because we were just destroying the industry with no competition. So iron sharpens iron. And I think the best thing that's ever happened to our company is these flashy objects. And I could not agree more with you. I think we're going to see a big return of people that went to these other companies, because they're going to realize that the grass is not always greener on the other side. So excited about the moment. I think a lot of people, maybe they see profit share being down right now. They're maybe not as excited, but I look at this like an opportunity, right? The greatest shift of wealth and opportunity are in down cycles. And I think that agents need what we have to offer right now more than ever. And for the people that are going to be purposeful about profit share, it's moments like these where you really build your unfair share. You agree with that?
I do agree with that. And I think you have to look at profit share kind of like you have to look at, like, if you've got stocks or a portfolio of stocks, right? I mean, you've got times where it's going to be up, and you've got times where it's going to be down. If you've had stocks in the market for a while, the last couple of weeks, you've watched your portfolio go down in value. Although your companies that you've invested in hopefully have long-term potential and will rebound. So it's kind of the same thing. I mean, you can't get all whipped up because your profit shares. I mean, if you know what's going on in the real estate industry and you know how hard it is, you can't. You can't. And look, the cool thing about profit share, people talk about like having pieces of ownership in market centers, and versus profit share. And I've said forever, look, what everybody says they would like to have ownership in a market center. The fact of the matter is you do in profit share, right? And you get to own a piece of the company because of your influence. And the coolest thing about that ownership piece is there's zero liability affiliated with it.
Yep.
I mean, you can complain if your profit share is lower, or you can wish it were higher, or you can go add somebody else to the roster, and you can increase your own profit share that way. But look, we've got a lot of owners in this company who probably wish they weren't owners sometimes, because they've lived through the hard times and the good. And the hard times meant they were an owner and they had to write checks to keep their market center open.
Yep.
So when you're in a market and you've got economic troubles and you're where people are not making money, the ownership has to come to the table with checks to make sure that business survives.
Exactly.
And so people like, oh, well, I wish I could get. Yeah, but would you be willing to write checks when times are bad? Because that's what kind of has to happen sometimes. And that's not for the faint of heart. Cool thing about profit share is nobody's coming and asking you for a cash call, right? They're scrambling on their own to figure it out. And you're the beneficiary of the good times, but you're not having to cough anything up in the bad times.
Well, I love that you say that, Shaun, because, we just passed obviously some policies at the ILC. And, I obviously when the conversation started around that, I was only looking at things through the prism of a profit share earner, right? And I was like, oh my God, I hate this idea. Why are we going to change the model? Let's live up to it, blah, 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 blah. But the point is, for the last 6 months, I've really gotten a lot of access to some information and getting to talk to people like you and other regional owners and leaders. And like you just said, Shaun, I mean, there's a reason we had to make some of these changes. I mean, we hadn't adjusted the profit share payout in 37 years, right? And so
it needed to happen.
It needed to happen.
It needed to happen. And
I Totally agree.
I think it's kind of, I've had a few conversations about that with people that are no longer with us.
Yeah.
That were upset about it, and they wanted to say that we were frauds or hypocrites, whatever it is. And it's like, hey, listen, we've always said we're an agent-owned company.
Yep.
And we've always said that the ALC will always make the decision. Somebody at the top won't.
Exactly.
So understand, nobody can say it will always be this way, because we're not run that way. We're a democratically run company at the end of the day. So
yeah.
So enough of the leaders and the agent leaders felt like that was a thing that would pass. And then I asked one question. I said, look, so now you're running a company of your own, and you're paying people to work for you that help you have systems and structures and all the things that will attract more agents and allow you to sell more houses as a business, correct? And they said yes. And I said, okay. So what if your model was built on the fact that if you work here and you help me get to the next level of my business, I'll always pay you.
Yep.
And they leave and they go work for somebody who's specifically trying to put you out of business. And are you still happily paying those people, or are you going, maybe I need to rethink that model? Maybe that, that made sense at one point in time, but maybe it doesn't anymore. And I don't know anybody running a business that would continue to pay people long after they're gone, particularly when they're paying people to take market share away from them.
Totally great. And Shaun, what people need to understand is our interdependent model has multiple sides to it. Okay.
Sure.
If it's not a business worth owning for our ownership groups, guess what? There's a good chance that profit share will not exist in the future. And I think people really need to understand this. There is no guarantee that profit share will exist in 100 years, right? Because it has to be a win-win for the associates, for the owners, and for the leadership. And so thank God we have, from day one, I've always said that we get to make, we get to decide how we change it if we decide to change it. But the point I was trying to get at, Shaun, was that, people need to understand that, look, the biggest challenge we face as a giant franchise company is that every office is independently owned and operated. All right. And if I had one wish, I would make Shaun Rawls the OP of every market center in KW so that I could just go ahead and retire. Okay. Because if they were all being, run the way we run, the way you guys run your market centers, we would be a lot more profitable as a company. But the point is this: as a stakeholder, what I understand now is that if this interdependent model is going to continue to work, if profit share is going to continue to deliver on its intent, on its original intent, which was to be a retention tool, we got to be in business with the best owners. And the only way we're going to be in the business with the best owners is that if owning a market center is a business worth owning. And so changing the profit share payouts and removing vested competing agents, guys, I mean, it was a necessity, because if we didn't make these decisions, I wouldn't be surprised in 10, 15, 20, 30 years if there was a vote to potentially end profit share. And
well, listen, I don't know if you were around when the last time we had a major profit share change was probably, it had to be in the first few years that I was with this company. So we joined in 99. It had to be somewhere between 2002 or 3. But back in the day, profit share, you actually profit shared on your own production.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So when they did the breakout, instead of profit share, the 100% of profit that you generated, you actually got 10% of what you generated off your production.
Interesting.
And then all of the splits that we've always known happened to 90% of the number.
Wow. Okay.
And so that was a huge vote. It was as big of a vote as this last one was.
Sure.
People were freaking fired up. I was like, man, what have I stepped into? I mean, it was like, if you talk about like putting Democrats and Republicans in a room right now and talking about it was like heated. And it was like, this is what I was sold. I get it on my production. Everybody needs that. And it was like over and over and over and over again. They were like, look, it's not passive. This is supposed to be passive. We're diluting the passivity of it. I mean, I can't remember all the arguments, but I remember it was a big damn deal. And it was the people that lost the end of that were sore about it. But my guess is that it didn't take long for that to become ancient history and people realized that it was a good thing. And I will tell you, again, going back to what I love about this company is we are never afraid to have a hard conversation. Yep. We're never afraid to look at what's always worked and make sure it's set up to always work. Absolutely. And if it's not set up to always work anymore, and our vision has changed, our view of the field has changed, our view of the industry has changed, and we need to revisit how it's always worked so that we can always work. We have those conversations, and we pick that scab, and we pick it from the standpoint of we are our true north, as you say. I like that term. Our true north is we want to be the best, most viable, most profitable, most passive income generating company that we can possibly be. And we want to do that with authenticity, integrity, and just we want to do it right. And sometimes that means we're going to have to piss some people off, or we're going to have to change some things up that some people loved, but a lot of people didn't, or a lot of people loved and a little people didn't. I don't. But we have those conversations, and this last little ALC thing is I think it was timely. I think it was even if the vote went the other way. I think it would have made our company better in either instance because we had the conversation and everybody voted.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And look, I changed. I went 180 on this whole thing.
I remember you and I had this conversation. Yeah. We had a conversation. I was walking around my pool one day. We were talking, and we were having this whole thing going, what do you think? What do you think? And I'm like, I don't know enough about it, and I don't know. I just got to believe that the people that are having these conversations are looking at enough aspects of it that it's the right thing to do. And I think until we have more information, we got to stay out of judgment on it. And I remember you and I having that conversation, and I'm glad we did, because I was like, it really is, something's going on, and we're not sitting at the table. We're sitting in the stands, and we don't know what they know. And let's just hope they know more than we do. And I think they did.
Well, I was fortunate enough to be on the Profit Share Task Force and to kind of start to be educated by people who were telling me about what it's like on the other side. And I think that's what really transformed my whole perspective on this is that, look, I get it. I'm a profit share earner. Okay. But if the owners who are sharing their profits with me, if it's not a win for them, well, then that doesn't sound like a very sustainable model. Excited about that. And one thing I wanted to say about that, Shaun, is that, talking about always keeping our true north. I mean, even with those policies, I know people weren't initially crazy about the idea of taking away, competing associates' profit share. But what people need to understand is that money's going back into the profit share system. Okay. At our competitors, when you leave, you don't get to take your rev share with you. It actually goes back to the company. And so what people need to remember, whether as it applies to that and as it applies to some of the changes we made a couple of years ago to vesting, is that underneath all of these changes is a deliberate sort of intent to protect the stakeholders at KW that are aligned in business with us, right? Meaning we didn't just make these decisions and put all this money in the owners' pockets to make them happy. They understood that in order for these changes to create the kind of change that we wanted and to solidify the future of profit share, is that it needed to go back to the associates, right? Because that is the core sort of foundation of KW. That's why our culture is different. And any kind of diluting of the profit share pool, to me, is a dilution of culture in KW. So even though we didn't all agree on the policies, I think the intent behind them, people need to understand that, look, if you're aligned with KW moving forward, all of these policy changes will only benefit you, right? Even more. Now, look, Shaun, before we finish, a couple quick thoughts. I just want to go back personally to my experience at your office. And I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, when I was in your office crying like a little baby, talking about how I didn't think I could be successful as a real estate agent. And, I can't tell you how much that conversation sort of shaped my life, because, I remember in that moment, You handed me a name and a number, and you said, here's my therapist. The first meeting's on me, right? And you literally paid for me to go see your therapist. Now, I'm the son of a Jewish mother who is a psychologist, so I've kind of been in therapy my whole life. But the fact that you, one, listened to me, and look, the fact that I was able to be vulnerable in front of you, I mean, that I hope is a testament to the kind of leader you were. But that moment, and me being vulnerable and you sort of stepping up and saying, hey, man, I love you. Here's what I want to do. And then a couple months later, you came to me and you said, hey, we have a recruit that's backed out of Family Reunion and we would love to take you. And I think I told you, I don't want to go. All right. Like, all I ever knew about Family Reunion was, I saw people with red Afro wigs and people waving KW flags. And I was like, dude, I'm not a rah-rah guy. And you said, dude, you're going and I'm paying for you to go. And you guys took me to Family Reunion in 2005. And that's when my life literally turned around, right? I saw Gary Keller speak with Dave Jenks. I got my idea. I
remember sitting and I remember sitting on next to you and whatever the event we were listening to.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, hey, I've got an idea.
Yeah.
And you talked to me about your idea to start a system that could recruit people.
Yep.
And I remember saying, I like it. Let's talk about it when we get home.
Yeah.
And you look, I think, I don't know if people know all this about you, but it's super cool because you were, you're a great example of, we don't get it right by getting it right. Right. I mean, Rick Hale told me that once. He and I used to be our safe islands where we could call and yell and scream or talk about somebody and or just talk about our failures or whatever it was. And I remember one day he said, look, man, the good news is we don't get it right by getting it right. And I found great comfort in that. And you're a good example of that because you saw what profit share could mean. Right. Yeah. And if people in this company could catch just a fraction of the fire that you caught when your light bulb went off, this company would be infinitely better. Now, when you did it, and you went all in.
Yeah,
you went all, and you made a lot of people nervous, and people thought you were going to be the guy that was going to ruin KW because you weren't focused on selling houses. You were focused on growing your downline, and you were doing it in this new and weird way. And some people didn't like it, and I got complaints and whatever. But through the entire process, you did exactly what we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
you came out, you had the right intention, you were trying to do something. It wasn't maybe the perfect way at the time, but it got you to it eventually. And you kept tweaking your systems, and you kept tweaking your message, and you kept tweaking your method until you really, really were undeniably a great, strong source of education and inspiration and comfort and camaraderie for people who have this passion and share it in some way of profit share with you. And I'm really proud of you. I mean, and I don't mean that in a condescending or patronizing way because that's not my style.
Sure.
But I just want you to know I'm really proud of you.
I appreciate it.
Every time I see you out there, sharing the gospel and telling everybody about this company and how they can create that other pillar of income and how important it is and why. I think about that day where you say, hey, I got an idea in the middle of Family Reunion. And I'm really proud of that trajectory. And you've just, in spite of turbulence, just found a way to fly above it and continue to provide value. And you've always come from contribution. And listen, our company is better because of you in a big way. And I love what you're doing. And I'm really proud to have a little chapter in the book of Aaron Kaufman where I get mentioned because I'm proud to be in that book.
Well, thanks, Shaun. And man, we won't share all the grenades that you jumped on for me when I would black out and say stupid things on the phone in situations where I was frustrated. But, I it's you and Gary Keller and Dave Jenks are the people that I built my entire, last 20 years of my life on. So, I'm grateful for that. And the reason I wanted to have you on this call, man, was that, it was being in your market center, right? It was being a non-believer in profit share, I wasn't a culture guy, but there was something about the energy at Peachtree Road and the core group of people like Jennifer Barnes and Lisa Pinson and Marilyn McAllister and Madeline Suits, right? It felt like a family. And people that know when I teach, I always kind of say, hey, I know it feels like a family, but it's the fact that there's an incentive here for us to work together and care about each other. But it was always like this layering, right? Like, okay, I was a non-believer, but then I was like, wow, I'm in this amazing office with people living huge lives that are willing to help me. And oh my God, some of them are earning profit share. And I have this amazing owner who's present in the office, right? I think that was another big thing, that you were there. You were a physical presence in the office. And then, for you to take me to family reunion because you saw something in me. And we always talk about, Shaun, getting people Kellerized, right? I don't think you probably thought I would get this Kellerized from that experience, but right. The being taken to family reunion and being exposed to Gary Keller and Dave Jenks and KW on a huge scale. It just all sort of happened naturally. And then for you to fight for me at times when it was very difficult to fight for me. And, but you were always there to help me, as you would say, pick the right fork in the road, and be able to be failing forward. I'll always be indebted to you. So before we end this call, Shaun, I'd love for you to give a little bit of a couple thoughts around your awesome book called Effortless. And, the thing I see on the cover of that book that jumps out to me is freedom, right? Mm-hmm. And, profit share to me is the freedom ultimately to choose what I want to do with my life, right? So maybe talk a little bit about your book, but how maybe some of these F words apply to profit share, and then we'll go ahead and end this interview, right?
Look, a lot of them do. Freedom's a big one, but the basis of the book, I kind of realized that a lot of people make big decisions in their life by saying, they say F it, right? And we know what the word is, but they just go, F it, I'll do it. And when you do that, it means you're typically giving in or giving up on something. Yeah. And I just got to thinking, what if, after coaching all these agents and being around all these successful people, I realized that the people that were living the great lives didn't say F it. And so I thought, what if F it was a different word? What if it was a good word? What if it wasn't a bad word? What if it was a word that meant that you actually were taking constructive steps to live the life that you want to live? And so I came up with 18 words, and the freedom one's a good one because I tell a story in there. The first Keller Williams thing I went to, or family reunion, was in Jekyll Island, I think, or Amelia Island. It was in Amelia Island. And there were 1,000 people there in 1999, or actually it was 2000, February 2000. And a guy said, he put freedom on a flip chart, and he said, what does this mean to you? What's the definition of freedom? And everybody had all these awesome definitions of freedom. And then he let everybody exhaust the room with all their definitions. And there were some really good ones. And then he just had a mic drop moment. And he said, here's my definition of freedom. And my definition of freedom is a complete lack of anxiety.
Love it.
And he said, and here's why, and this is why it ties to profit share, because he was talking about profit share. It was a class. He was Aaron Kaufman before there was Aaron Kaufman, because he was saying, look, my wife and I can go and drive around the country in our RV, and we can do whatever. And we've got our Social Security, and we're going to make a few $1,000s a month in profit share, no matter what. And it's only going to get better. And we're doing this, and we're living the life we want. We have no anxiety, and we have no stress, because we have made some right decisions. And joining this company was one, and having a stake in profit share is another. And we have a freedom-focused life thanks to profit share. So it really was, that word and that definition came from his definition of freedom from profit share.
Love it.
And it's really, Tom Colwell was his name. I don't know where Tom is today. He was from Colorado, and he was just a really smart, cool, and interesting guy to listen to. And I hope he's doing well and living his riches passively, because he influenced a lot of people that day, and I was one of them.
It's amazing.
But Yeah, I love my book. I've always said if nobody read it but my children, that'd be great. But I believe in everything I wrote in there. I've earned every bit of that wisdom that I've shared in it. And
Yeah.
as I tell people, if you don't like to read, I can read it to you if you download it on Audible. But I hope everybody reads it and loves it, because and everybody that does read it usually reaches out and tells me how it impacts their life. So I know it's got a lot of great stuff in there. If you haven't read it, go to Amazon and get it, or download it on Audible.
No, it's an amazing book. And anybody that knows you, who's ever listened to you, knows that basically everything that comes out of your mouth or on a piece of paper is wisdom, and nuggets.
Not a lot of people know that you're in that book, Aaron.
No, I know.
You're in it.
I get it.
I'm going to tell a story here. So Aaron's in my office. He's talking about all the things that could happen, that, or it could happen. It wasn't bad. And this probably led to the therapist referral, right? But you were talking, and I said, and I remember stopping and just saying, do you know what you remind me of? And you were like, no. And I said, when I listen to you talk right now, everything you're saying, you sound like a bear who's chewing his own leg off so that it won't get caught in a trap.
Yep.
And you looked at me with the biggest eyes, and you developed this little smile, and you said, I got it.
Yep.
And you just stood up and you walked out.
Yep.
And it was just like a mic drop moment for both of us at the thing. And you never looked back.
Well, that's what I love, Shaun, about how you define freedom, right? Because a lot of people look at freedom as the ability to make choices. But when you're a high anxiety person like myself, right?
Most people in our industry are.
Absolutely. It's if you can't get past the anxiety of life, it doesn't matter what choices you have, right? So sometimes we get so caught up in fear of trying, fear of doing something different. And look, there was always this sort of calmness around profit share for me, because look, profit share goes up and down. People who join KW leave. You don't always get every sponsorship that you want, but there was always this feeling of inevitability, that if all I do today is add more people to KW in my downline, everything else is going to work its way out. And that calming, that removing of the anxiety, right, then opened up choices, right, for me. But until I found that path to eliminate the anxiety, it was always going to be this, this drunk squirrel, or whatever we call it, driving the Aaron ship, because ultimately I was so anxious about failing and about not having enough money that it paralyzed me. And when I found that one thing that I could just focus on, and look, in real estate, it's lead gen, right? If you have anxiety, shut your door from 9 to 12, lead generate, and there's not one problem in your life, in real estate, that can't be solved by generating more leads. The same thing with profit share. There's not one thing in my life that I can't fix by sponsoring more people to KW. And you never know who the next person you sponsor to KW is going to be. I mean, Tammy Martinez, I don't know if you remember that name.
Yes.
Okay, she was a decent agent in Sandy Springs. She sponsored one person to KW. That's me. Okay. And I have a feeling the ripple effect of sponsoring me into KW is going to remove a lot of her anxieties throughout her life. Right.
So look, let's talk about this for 1 second. I know we got to go, but so listen, the thing about profit share is, if you have to take a few minutes to think about it, and you have to realize, if you're getting into this business as a brand new agent, or you're joining us from any other company or whatever that is, you have to realize that profit share is a byproduct of being great.
Yeah.
It's a byproduct of being somebody people want to be around. It's a byproduct of being somebody that people want to learn from. And if you think that you're going to invest in yourself and do the work to become successful in this industry, you're going to attract people wherever you go, right? So my guess is, no matter who you are, you've attracted people to a church group, you've attracted people to your church, you've attracted people to a tennis team, you've attracted people to a hobby or a club, You've attracted people to the office where you work, to the company that you are with, just because you like where you are, you like the people you are, and you're a good disciple and you're a good marketing person for whatever you're involved in. And my guess is you've always been that way. And I remember when we were looking at Keller Williams, when we didn't even know what profit share could really be, but the idea of it, I loved the idea of it. Because when I looked around, I thought, you know what? I looked around my Remax office and I thought, so-and-so's here because I'm here. They used to be there. We did a deal. And I was like, what are you doing? You should come over here. Why are you paying all that money to your broker? Blah, blah, blah. And I had like a list of 5 or 10 people. And I thought, my God, I've helped grow Remax just because I like Remax.
Exactly.
And I wanted to work with these people, and it was fun. And I got the byproduct of that, and I had fun, and I love being affiliated with these people. But now it was like, and I've always done that. I've attracted people to tennis teams. I've attracted people to, I like bringing the party with me pretty much everywhere I go. So to think that I could do that in a company and get paid for it, I thought, wow. Why not? Why wouldn't anybody do that? When you think about it, if you're somebody who's been influential in your life in other areas, my guess is you're going to be influential wherever you go. And my guess is if you've been with your real estate company and you love it, you've brought people to that company just because you love it. Exactly. Well, you can do the same thing here if you love it and you get paid for it. And I think if you're thinking about it and you realize, look, I'm going to maximize my opportunities and I'm going to maximize my own self-value and I'm going to invest in myself and I'm going to take these classes and I'm going to get better and I'm going to hold myself accountable and I'm going to make more money and I'm going to become more successful and I'm going to meet more people and I'm going to do more deals and I'm going to have more opportunities to talk to more people, and people are going to see this guy's got a lot going on. This guy's loving what he's doing. This guy is in it. I want what this guy's drinking. I want what can I take from this guy that I can learn from? Well, maybe I could just be around him more. Maybe I could go to meetings with him. Maybe he shares what he knows in a team meeting every Tuesday. Maybe he shares on a Zoom. Maybe he teaches classes, and he does. He does all those things. And why wouldn't I want to be in that airstream? And I think that's how attraction works.
Yeah, it's like what Kay Evans says, right? What's your attractor factor, right? I mean, ultimately, and when I teach my class, Shaun, it was a 3-hour class, but I started off with a question for the room, and their question is, how important is it for you to believe in what you're talking about or what you're selling, right? And I always talk about a quote from Ben Kinney, our top agent. He said it years ago. It always stuck with me. He said, "When you offer the best service, you owe it to people to have them work with you," right? And that's how I feel about KW. But with that said, Shaun, if you don't participate in our culture, if you don't follow our trainings, our models, if you're not an agent that people respect, it doesn't matter what kind of script you got in your back pocket, okay?
No.
You ain't attracting them to KW because you have profit share breath.
Well,
right?
Listen, the law of relationships works all the time. And you've heard me say this, I'm sure, a million times, but it's everything boils down to this for me. In life, you make deposits and you make withdrawals.
Yep.
And when it comes to recruiting and profit share, we had a lot of wild people that went out there trying to make withdrawals without any money in the bank. Mm-hmm. And they just looked like idiots and they sounded like idiots and they gave Keller Williams kind of a bad name. However, there are a lot of people, myself and you included, and a zillion other people that are part of this group, who go out there and make deposits every day, who go out there and contribute every day, who teach classes, who help people, who are the bigger agent in a tough negotiation, a transaction, and show that by demonstrating who they truly are at their core. And those are people where once you get people to go, wow, he's a really good person. Wow, he's a really successful person. Wow, he didn't need to do that. He didn't need to cover for me like he did. He really took the bullet for me, and he could have easily let me fall on my own. All those things are deposits that we make with people in our relationship, even if they're just acquaintances or things, an agent on the other side of a transaction. But when you get somebody's attention by demonstrating the quality person you are, you make a deposit that one day you'll be able to make a withdrawal on, and you'll have the right to ask, are you happy where you are? On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you in the company you're with? What would it look like for that to be a 10 for you? And
I love
Gosh,
that.
we kind of do that here. Have you ever talked to anybody at our company? I love my broker, and I'd love to set up a meeting for you to talk to them. That's if you've got the money in the bank, you can have that conversation and not go negative in your account.
Exactly.
But if you don't have the deposits and you ask that question and you go negative, if you go negative in an account like that, you're never going to get your balance above zero again. You blew it. You blew it.
And, my guess is, Shaun, you probably haven't sponsored 50 people to KW, 100 people to KW. You probably sponsored, 20, 30 people that were like-minded, okay, that you had relationships with, that respected the way you did business. And that's all it took, was 20 to 30 like-minded, respected agents you brought to KW, who then just went out and did the exact
But
same.
here's what's cool now, Aaron. Here's what's cool now. Back then, when I was talking to an Aaron Kaufman and saying, dude, you got to come talk to me. I really want to talk to you. The truth of the matter is, in 1999, 2000, 2001, I hoped I was telling you the truth.
Yeah.
I hoped I was. I
that.
kind of bit the model. I liked it. I loved the idea of it. And I hoped that what I was selling was going to pan out. The difference between then and now is I freaking know.
I love it.
Everything I'm telling you is the truth.
I love that.
I know it because I've lived it and I've watched it. And I've been there when I hoped I was telling you the truth. And I'm telling you, it is a far different picture now. I can have confidence of having a conversation that I never had before.
Amazing, Shaun. Let's end on that awesome nugget. You're the man. I love you. I can't thank you enough for all you've done, not just for me, but for countless of people. We always talk about the coaching tree in the NFL, right? Like the Belichick coaching tree. I mean, you must be just mind blown when you look at the people below you and what they've become, like the Peters. Remember when I started the Peters?
Oh my God, yes, I know.
Andy and Leslie Peters were there. I mean, all the people. I think Nick Baldwin, right? You helped sponsor, get his mother to KW. I mean, when we look back at the Shaun Rawls coaching tree and the impact that you've had in KW, and people need to understand, there's a piece of Shaun Rawls in everybody's profit share check every month. You, my man, are such a huge part of KW. Your influence, everything you've done in this company has created a ripple effect. And I hope people fully understand how much you have meant to this company and how much you mean to it moving forward. So thank you so much for taking your time. Guys, once again, if you haven't gotten Shaun's book, F It Less, it's a total amazing read. And Shaun does nothing but drop wisdom and nuggets on every page. So Shaun, thanks again, man. Look forward to seeing you soon in person, and can't thank you enough today.
Hey, thanks for everything, buddy. I appreciate you. Thanks for the time today. Take care, everybody.
Take care, man. All right.